I'm making s'mores ice cream pie. It's basically all the flavors of your dearest campfire confection in a frosty pie. I'll start with a basic graham cracker crust. I've got 1 stick of butter that I'll melt in my saucepan. I'll brown this butter, which will lend some toasty flavor that will help contribute to the illusion that we're gonna be eating this pie near a campfire. I'll heat it gently until it starts to sizzle and pop. That's the milk solids browning. And then once the sizzling and the popping sounds stop and the butter goes silent, that's how you know it's done. While this goes, I'll blend up my graham crackers. I'll sprinkle in a pinch of salt, because it'll taste good, and then process into crumbs. And now with this running, I'll drizzle in the butter. You can see and smell those toasty, buttery bits. Okay, it's starting to clump together. I could just eat this straight. This is the 9-inch pie plate here. I'll dump this in and pack it down firmly and evenly all over the bottom and up the sides. Crust is looking thick and tasty. Oh yeah. Now I'm gonna line this crust with fudge. And then very carefully, so that the fudge doesn't pull up the crumbs from the crust, I'll spread it all over the bottom and up the sides, and it'll be this great chewy, chocolatey layer between the crust and the ice cream. Why eat ice cream out of a bowl when you could eat it out of a tray of graham cracker crust and fudge? You know what I'm saying? I'll stick this in the freezer to firm up while I make my no-churn ice cream filling. This is the easiest way to make ice cream. You essentially just beat up heavy cream and sweetened condensed milk and then add in your mix-ins. The secret is all of the ingredients have gotta stay cold. I even chilled my mixer bowl. So I have heavy cream right in here that I'm gonna beat to stiff peaks. I'll get my sweetened condensed milk and marshmallow fluff, and these have been chilling so that the ice cream can maintain its stiff texture. This is looking good. I'll quickly scrape in my sweetened condensed milk and marshmallow fluff, of course, since it's a s'more. It's so good. And a teaspoon of vanilla and a pinch of salt. And now I don't want to deflate this, so I'll quickly beat this in until it's just incorporated. That's it, I'm done. I don't want to overmix it and risk it deflating. So I'm gonna, quick as a bunny, hurry scurry, get my frozen pie crust. Pile this into the center. Oh, look at that. Look at that fluff. You know what this is begging for? Just some swoops with a spoon to get really pretty texture. I'm working quickly, I don't want it to melt. Ice cream really makes you earn it. Okay, back in the freezer she goes. While the pie stays chilly, I'll char its topping. I've got my marshmallows, my fire. Here I go. This is so satisfying. If you don't have one of these, you can use a broiler. Ha! I'm lighting some stuff on fire. Getting some great color on the marshmallows. Who needs a campfire? Okay, I'll plop these on. It's gonna be great. And make it pretty with some super normal waxy milk chocolate. It's everything I've always wanted and s'more. I'm making my s'mores brownies, which are rich and fudgy and covered in charred marshmallows. To get started on the crust, I have 2 packages of graham crackers. I'll spice things up with some ground cinnamon, a little bit of chili powder for a tiny kick of heat. I'll bring out all the flavors with a pinch of kosher salt, and then I'll blend this until it's really finely ground. All right, I'm gonna drizzle in 10 tablespoons of melted, unsalted butter, and this will bring the crust together. This looks great, and it smells even better. I'm gonna get this into my pan now. I've got an 8-inch square pan that I've greased and lined with parchment paper, and I'll pack it down firmly and evenly. My crust is packed. I'm gonna stick it in the fridge to chill while I make my brownie layer. These brownies are so moist and fudgy. I'll start with 2 large eggs. I'll grab some sugar, half a cup of light brown sugar. I'll add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I'll pour in the melted butter that's left over from the graham cracker crust. And by this time, it's cooled slightly, which is good because I don't want it to cook the eggs.
And this is 3 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter. I'll whisk this to combine, and I want to whisk it pretty vigorously so that the butter and the sugar really emulsify. Time to add some dry ingredients. I'll get a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Cinnamon and chocolate together are so good. And then a little bit of chili powder because these S'mores brownies are inspired by Mexican chocolate, which has that great heat. And a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. And I'll mix to combine. And for the final touch, some chocolate chips. I love it when brownies have surprises of extra chocolate sprinkled in. Twice the chocolate. Yay! My crust is firmed up. I'm gonna pour the brownie batter all over it. I'll spread this out evenly. Now this is ready for the oven. I'll stick it in at 350 degrees until they're set on top. My brownies are done baking. They're looking great. And now for the top layer, I'm making my gooey marshmallow frosting. I've got 1 stick of butter, 1½ cups of powdered sugar, and a pinch of salt that I'm blending up until it's fluffy. And now to make it marshmallowy, I'm gonna add 2 cups of marshmallow cream. I love this stuff. It's so smooth and gooey. I'm just eyeballing this in. I'll add 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract and mix until it's smooth. Okay. I'll spread this right on, and I'll spread this all over. Oh, for sweet. I'll stick this in the fridge to firm up, and then I'm gonna go find Nick because I need some help charring up my marshmallows. I found my torch man. If you don't have a torch person, you can toast your marshmallows in a broiler. Those look perfect. It smells like a campfire in here. Now you can just put some of those on top of the brownies.
Will do.
Perfect. Okay, you did a great job. I think you earned a taste.
Let's do it.
Okay. Cheers. Ooh, layers. I am making my s'mores slab pie, which is buttery and flaky. It's perfect for a crowd. So to get started, I'm gonna make my crust. I'm gonna grab 2½ cups of all-purpose flour, and then I'm also gonna add 1¼ cups of whole wheat flour. I'm gonna add 6 tablespoons of sugar, and now I'll add my salt, and then 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, and a few passes of nutmeg. And the nutmeg and the cinnamon combined with the whole wheat flour are what's gonna give this crust that graham crackery flavor. There we go. And now I'll whisk this to combine. Now that my dry ingredients are combined, I'll grab my butter and shortening. I like using a mix of butter and shortening in my crust. I wanna do everything that I can to keep my butter and shortening as cold as possible because that is gonna help the crust stay flaky. And I'm just gonna use my hands to smash the cubes of butter and shortening to incorporate them into my dry mixture. But I still want some larger chunks of butter and shortening. My pie dough mixture is looking ready, so now I'm gonna grab my liquid. 2/3 of a cup of cold water. It's important that it's cold, again, for the flakiness. And then I'm also adding 2 teaspoons of vinegar. Vinegar inhibits the formation of gluten in a pie crust and helps it stay flaky. I'll drizzle this in, and then I'll use a spatula to mix it all together. And it's starting to come together into a dough, so I'm gonna finish it off by just getting back in here with my hands. I'm gonna wrap it in plastic wrap now. I'll divide it in half. 1 piece for the bottom layer, 1 piece for the top layer. And I'm gonna form these blobs into rectangles because I'm making a slab pie. This is a dough that can be done a couple of days in advance. And now I'll refrigerate this for 4 hours so it can firm up. I want some more already. I'm gonna assemble my s'mores slab pie now. I'll grab my rolling pin, and I have 1/2 of my dough that I'm gonna roll out for the bottom of the pie. And I'll dust my work surface with some flour so that the dough doesn't stick. And I'll also dust the top of the dough. And I wanna roll out my dough so that it's big enough to cover the pan and hang over the edges a little bit to get a nice thick crust. I'll transfer my dough to my pan. And to do that, I'm gonna roll it up. And now I'll slip my pan right underneath. I'm just helping it get molded into the corners of the pan. And now for the filling, couldn't be simpler, chocolate and marshmallows. I've got 4 chocolate bars, and I'll lay these right in, and I'll break up the 4th bar and distribute it all over, and this chocolate is all gonna melt right down. And then I'm gonna cover the chocolate with mini marshmallows. I'll spread my marshmallows all over the chocolate, and now I'll grab my other half of the pie crust to roll out for the top. So I'll roll this out just like I rolled out the bottom layer of crust. Okay, this top crust is looking ready, and I'm going to gently transfer it to the top of the pie. Woo! All right, now I'm gonna go around and pinch the edges to seal, and then I'm gonna grab my scissors to trim off any excess edges. And now my favorite part, I'm gonna use my fingers to make a crimping pattern on the edge. And I'll brush this all over with a thin layer of egg wash, and that'll help the top of the pie get shiny. And then the last thing I'll do before I'll bake this is I'm gonna poke a few holes in the top with a fork, just to release the steam. This is gonna bake at 400 degrees for 40 to 50 minutes until the top is golden, and I cannot wait to eat this. This is stunning, and it already smells like camp in here. Okay, I'm gonna let my pie cool while I make my chocolate glaze. I'll grab some milk and cocoa powder, and now I'm gonna add 3 cups of powdered sugar to my bowl. 3/4 of a cup of cocoa powder, some salt, and 6 tablespoons of whole milk. And now I'll mix it until it's smooth. And I'm looking for a thick, spreadable consistency. This is perfect. It's ready to go on my pie. Okay, I'm gonna use an offset spatula now to zhuzh it around. I like getting nice big swoops in the glaze. Oh, it's so glossy and gorgeous. Okay, sprinkles time. I have these cute sprinkles that have little tiny marshmallows in them. I'll sprinkle these all over. It's so great. It's like a big fancy s'more.